All right. Welcome to today's Salt Lake City Council meeting. We are happy to have you here while we continue to hold our meeting remotely due to safety precautions related to the pandemic and the earthquake. Thank you for joining us. We will begin with a moment of silence as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. When we are done, we will turn our audio back on. Thank you. So we as city council members wear 3 different hats. And last formal meeting, it was a little confusing on when public comment for certain things was happening. So before I get into the decorum and the rules of decorum for our meetings, I just want to try to explain how this is going to go. So as council members, we also sit as the board of the local building authority. And we do have a public hearing on the local building authority's budget today. So we're going to start with that. After the local building authority meeting, we sort of switch hats and we will then reconvene as the RDA board, the redevelopment agency board. Again, there will be a public hearing on the redevelopment agency's budget, and we'd ask that people only comment on the redevelopment agency's budget. After that, we will switch our hats one more time and convene as the city council. The city council also has a public hearing on its budget. So we will try to, if we kind of have callers or have people commenting on one of the other budgets, I may very nicely ask that you hold your comments and wait until the appropriate time, just so that we keep the record clear and so that we're all kind of on the same page as much as possible. As always, we are accepting public comment through WebEx. And for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate phone line. Before we begin, I do want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, and efficient way. These help us move through the agenda and give everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. The Council respects all points of view, and we welcome new insights. While giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. Again, we try to make sure that everybody feels comfortable to have their voice be heard. If you do use profanity during your comment, your line will be muted, and if any comments reach a level of disrespect, muted, and you will forfeit the opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity or have some other comments that are not appropriate, please feel free to email council members or call our comment line. In addition, our staff will request for your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name does not meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Taylor Hill, from our staff, is helping to moderate this meeting and will be messaging with the attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message Taylor with any questions. If you would like to send any comments to the City Council, please feel free to do so. You can mail us at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can email us at council.comments@slc www.unentitledchaptergov.com, or you can call us at 801-535-7654. We will now begin with our first hearing item for the local building authority. Robert Nutzman on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open the public comment, Robert will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, Robert will say your name, unmute your line, and you may begin. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, we realize 2 minutes is not a lot of time. Please refer to your chat screen and our staff will post our contact information. Remember, any comments that we get via email, any of our social medias, mailed in, are distributed to us council members and do become part of the record. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please let us know that you're just here to listen. Our local building authority hearing is regarding a resolution adopting the final budget for the local building authority of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2021-2022, including the capital projects fund. Last time we had Jen give a little overview of this budget of this item. Jen, do you want to just give us a quick little overview before we get started with comments?
Yeah, just real quickly for the public's information, for the council's information, because sometimes the title can be a little confusing. The local building authority is essentially a financing tool that the city used to facilitate the financing and building of the Glendale and Marmalade library branches. And so in the budget, it's essentially just debt service. It's paying on those bonds. So that's the information on the local building authority.
Thank you. And with that, Robert, do we have any comments on this?
Good evening, Council Chair. Yes, we have approximately 4 people to speak to this item, beginning with Joseph Johnson, followed by Taylor Money, and then Michael Valentine. One moment while I unmute Joseph. Joseph, you've been unmuted.
Hi there, council members. I do appreciate this opportunity to give my comments on this meeting here. First of all, I am a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. Even though I am not here representing them, I would like to personally thank all of the council members for supporting the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And I'm here just to express my concern about what I believe is the necessity to take into account the sustainability projects to effectively grow our city in a healthy and sustainable manner here. And as many of you will see on my comments I submitted, I do believe one of the most effective tools that we could do would be to increase the funding for the Department of Sustainability and the Salt Lake City Public Lands Commission as well. Both of those work hand in hand in order to increase the renewable energy sector of the city, as well as protecting public lands and trails. Both services are very, very valuable to the continuing services of the city. And as we are continuing to see an increase in population in and around the Salt Lake Valley, it is crucial that we make sure that we develop for future generations a healthy and sustainable method of development that leaves nobody behind and that allows us to really grasp the full potential of the economic chances that we have to turn Salt Lake City into a more sustainable, healthy environment with lower pollution and more outdoor recreation activities that will link us all together, and that will, in very future years, help us mitigate the effects of climate change, as we are already seeing in recent summers. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, before we continue, I do appreciate that comment. I would just like to reiterate that I think that comment may be more appropriate for when we convene as the city council body and we're talking about the mayor's proposed budget for the city council. So to the next callers, again, if you can keep your comments to the local building authorities budget, that would be very helpful. We will get to the main budget a little bit later in our formal meeting.
Council
Robert?
Chair, Taylor Money has indicated that she is not interested in speaking to this particular item, so we'll move on to Michael Valentine, who will be followed by Ian Harris. Michael, you are unmuted.
Awesome. I think what Amy just said, if you guys can hear me, I'd like to speak on the RDA and then also during the city council general session. So if I could just wait until then, if that's all right.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will make sure that you are in the queue for those 2 agenda items.
And Council Chair, next we have Ian Harris. Ian, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I will wait until later as well. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you all so much, and thank you for understanding. Robert, is there anybody else to this?
No, there's not, Council Chair.
Thank you so much. I know it is confusing, so I appreciate everybody's working with us. With that, council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. At this point, this concludes our local building authority agenda. I will ask for a motion to adjourn as the local building authority board and convene as the redevelopment agency board.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Wharton. I'll go ahead and roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That brings us, as our second hats, to the redevelopment agency board. And our item as the RDA is a public hearing. This public hearing is in regard to a resolution adopting the final budget for the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2021-2022. And again, I'll have Jen give us just a brief overview before we take any comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the redevelopment agency collects property tax increment from specific areas of the city to invest in those areas and into affordable housing in general to further the city's policy goals. So this presents the annual budget for how those property tax dollars will be collected and spent in the coming year.
Thank you, Robert. If we can get started on our public comment, please.
Thank you, Council Chair. We have approximately 5 users to speak to this. The first being George Chapman, followed by Casey McDonough, and then Ian Harris. George, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, the RDA budget doesn't have anything about the thousands of affordable housing that RDA staff predicted on the State Street CRA. This city has dragged their feet for 7 years with just 2 projects approved, despite, again, the RDA staff saying we should have thousands of units. So a good form-based zoning would open the floodgates to affordable housing construction, but the local community councils haven't been told about potential plans. So it looks like Salt Lake City is going to wait another 7 years to build thousands of promised affordable units. Please do something. Okay, the Station Center can use impact fees to close a $5 million funding gap, but UTA should not be doing development since it takes away $100 million from $1 bus service potential. This city seems to be discouraging bus service and $1 fares when they encourage UTA to build buildings at Station Center. Again, Salt Lake City does not allow housing on 80% of the city's area, despite just approving low-income housing in an area that the city said can have housing. Remember the Airport Inn? Well, if the Airport Inn can have housing, then the International Center can use housing. It's in Zone C, which means they can have housing. We want more housing for the 50,000 employees at the International Center and the areas outside of the single-family home zone neighborhoods. Those are my comments.
Council Chair, next we have Casey McDonald, followed by Ian Harris, and then Pachuco Lataro. Casey, you are unmuted.
All right. Hi, this is Casey McDonough. I'm sure all of the city council members and the mayor are familiar with my name in regards to the coalition of residents trying to save the Utah Pantages Theater. You've surely all have seen the email that we sent you with links to what we've concluded from the grammar request we made regarding this deal and the operations of the RDA. So I think this is a great time to talk about it in the context of you guys adopting the next budget. I'm going to address the thing that I find the most alarming from that grammar request, and the thing that when I tell journalists and other residents about, they find, I think, almost entirely the most alarming thing, which is that Hines made a request of the city to, in fact, hide all of the deal from any grammar request. To Tammy's credit with the RDA, she let them know that wasn't possible. That's not how grandma and open records work. But the mere fact that they asked for that raises the specter of I think, grave suspicion that there's something in that deal. And I think we found many things in that deal that we've emailed you about that are at best questionable and at worst hint at collusion and lies. So I'd ask that you don't approve the budget, or if you do approve the budget, that you stop all the current deals of the RDA and have an emergency investigation from a third independent party. I know we'll be talking to the AG's office about it. There's possible avoidance of state RDA code issues related to this and other things we're investigating. I used to say this deal was sour, but I think the deal, the more I think about it, the more we find out about it, is actually rotten, and it needs to be looked into immediately. Thanks. Bye.
Next, we have Ian Harris, followed by Pachuco Lataro, and then Afa Akiona. One moment. Ian, you've been unmuted.
Thanks. Yeah, I honestly am not very familiar with the RDA's budget and every line in it. I would just also like to make a comment toward the availability and number of low-income units that are available, and point out their importance and the shortcomings in current low-income housing stock with the expiration of those units in many cases where there is no requirement past a few years of them being built to honor any responsibility to match the rent scale of their units to the areas that they're in and the jobs that are available in their neighborhoods. And yeah, low income housing is very needed.
All right, Council Chair, next we have Pachuco Lataro. Pachuco, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, my name is Pachuco Lautaro. here with the Rose Park Brown Berets, and I'm just here to show solidarity with the Save the Utah Pantages Theater. Danny Walls and the RDA have been lying about the theater for years. Inflated restoration costs, discredited historical experts, used 6 years of exclusive agreements to hold the theater hostage, and orchestrated its destruction to every turn. Danny Walls and David Artiega have known that the theater was eligible for the historic registry and 20% tax credit since September 27, 2018 at a Preservation Utah Board meeting. So I'm just here for y'all to save the theater in solidarity with them. You know, you guys shouldn't be destroying that historical theater that is very useful to the community. So I'm just here for y'all to reopen it and to put a stop to it, because I know you guys are planning to build luxury apartments. Thank you.
Following Pacheco, we have Afa Aikona, followed by Michael Valentine. Afa, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Malo Dalava. I am grateful to be here on the ancestral lands of the Ute, Paiute, Shoshone, Dene, and many others relatives. I'm calling in to in support of the theater, and as well as like if this language can be changed, and if you can please support the communities that are living and make theater on the stage, and that build and our city each and every day. Please don't be bought out as city council members, and please, you are here to serve the community. Please don't be bought out by the profits that can do seem right at the time. Please do the right thing and support the community. Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Michael Valentine. Michael, you're unmuted.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me? Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'd just like to shout out to, Pride Day right here real quick, and I'd like to welcome Dennis to the council. Very excited to be here with all you guys and finally talk to you. You know us well. We've been trying to talk to you about the theater for a long time, and I find it very unsettling that last Friday we revealed a sprawling investigation into years-long lies and abuse and fraud of the RDA, and then today it's just business as usual with this RDA meeting and about the budget at 2 p.m. And we wouldn't make these claims if we couldn't back them up. The lies are so obscene that we use the RDA's own documents against them. We use the minutes from the meetings. We use the memos. We use the videos on YouTube. As our homies, the Brown Berets, mentioned, Danny and David Artiega have known about the historic registry since 2018. That's 20% tax credits goes directly to the theater being restored. Chris, in the October meeting of 2019, you asked for follow-up about the registry. How do we know it's not on there? They lied directly to your face. Not only have they lied to the city and the people, they've lied to you as members of the city council. They've lied to 2 mayors now. This is information that you guys need to have factual from experts to be able to make decisions, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They've inflated restoration costs. We have Evergreen Architectural Arts. They've restored 3 of our sister Pantages theaters and over 400 theaters that agree with us that the restoration costs are actually 35 to 40 million, not 60 to 80 million. They abandoned the 2018 Preservation Utah survey that would have asked for public input about the theater. They abandoned the 2019 structural survey and restoration costs that would have updated those structural costs, and then as Casey mentioned, these emails from Hines and the grandma documents are just very unsettling. Blanket grandma requests, collusion with the RDA about the historical registry and the tax credits, asking for the purchase and sales agreement to be signed before the
Council Chair, we don't have any more speakers to this item.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you everyone who commented today on this agenda item. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Rogers.
Clarification, we're board members, but yes.
I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, board members. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate you. Board Member Warden.
Yes.
Board Member Dugan.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Ferris.
Yes.
And Board Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes. And at this point, that concludes our meeting for RDA. I will look for a motion to adjourn as the Redevelopment Agency Board and to convene as the Salt Lake City Council.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Rogers and a second by Board Member Dugan. I will go ahead and roll call this. Board Member Rogers.
Yes.
Board Member Dugan.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
Board Member Ferris.
Yes.
Board Member Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes and concludes RDA. We are now convening as the City Council and are at item F1, which is approval of the work session meeting minutes of Tuesday, September 29th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. At this point, the council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall celebrating Pride Month. I will turn the time over to Councilmember Chris Wharton to read the resolution. Councilmember?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really excited to read this resolution. I don't know how long Salt Lake City has recognized June as Pride Month in Salt Lake City, but this is a historic year because this morning the governor issued a resolution recognizing Pride Month for the entire state of Utah for June 2021 for all LGBTQ plus Utahns, and so it's really exciting to have the state join us for the first time in history this year. But of course, it's also exciting to have Salt Lake City outline this resolution as we have done for, I think, several decades now, as far as I'm aware. So, whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, and the fulfillment of this promise has been long coming in many ways for many Americans. And whereas some of the most inspiring moments in our history have arisen from various civil rights movements that have brought one group after another from the margins into the mainstream of American society. And whereas the month of June is traditionally recognized as Pride Month in commemoration of the Stonewall riots of 1969, which is one of these moments that sparked change and is widely considered to be among the most important events leading to the gay liberation movement and the modern fight for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus or LGBTQ plus rights in the United States. And whereas Pride Month celebrates and recognizes a community that includes people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit, pansexual, asexual, gender fluid, non-binary, intersex, as well as heterosexual allies. And whereas Salt Lake City acknowledges that the LGBTQ plus community, and in particular Indigenous, Black, and other queer people of color, have faced and continue to face systemic discrimination including restricted rights, social stigma, challenges accessing healthcare and other basic social services, and startling rates of violence. And whereas Salt Lake City has a proud history of leading the state and many other cities across the nation in enacting policies and programs that stand against discrimination and promote equality, opportunity, and prosperity for all members of the LGBTQ+ community, regardless of their race, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And whereas Pride Month will be an uplifting reminder of how much we have to celebrate and should prompt us to remain diligent and committed in our efforts to ensure full equality, inclusion, and empowerment for every single member of our LGBTQ+ community. And whereas from June 1st to June 7th, the Utah Pride Center, a community space for all LGBTQ+ Utahns, will host Pride Week, a celebration of the LGBTQ+ community with events and festivities in replacement of the annual Pride Festival and Pride Parade in an effort to prevent this further spread of COVID-19. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City recognize June 2021 as Pride Month in Salt Lake City. Be it further resolved that Salt Lake City encourages and welcomes all residents and visitors to embrace Pride Month's message of equality and unity, and to enjoy its celebrations this June in peace, safety, and love. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll turn the time back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. Before I recognize Rob Molman, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Utah Pride Center, who I believe is here to join us, I would look for a motion adopting the resolution.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, and I heard a second by Councilmember Mono. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes, Queen.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I don't know if you'd like to take a moment to say something.
I'll say thank you for helping raise the flag earlier today to Councilmember Wharton and the 100 other people who came out. And I think it has even more meaning this year for us to have Pride come together in our capital city, where they're having more volunteers than they've ever had before, and corporations stepping up wanting to support the unity and celebration. So it's a wonderful thing, and I hope that as people decide to go to the Pride Fest this year, they'll know that that entry fee is paying for services that are so critically needed, that the Utah Pride Center performs 365 days a year. So it's just wonderful to be back together.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I see that one of my favorite people ever has joined us, Rob, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Utah Pride Center. Thank you so much for joining us. This is always difficult for me when we do these awesome resolutions and we don't get to be in person to give big hugs and take lots of pictures. So I'm just going to take a picture like on my phone of the screens. But I'd love to turn it over to you if you'd like to take a few moments to say something.
Thank you so much. I am just going to take a few moments. It's a little impromptu, but I want to thank the mayor and the city council for that incredible resolution. I thought that I would bring a little pride flair with the BOA, but as I was sitting listening to it being read out loud, I was just reminded about what a powerful statement it is. And I thank the governor for his resolution and declaration, and it is fabulous to have the governor make that statement. But I want this council to recognize just how powerful this resolution is and how much meaning it has to our communities. It mentions out loud not just gay, bi, trans, queer individuals, but it mentions individuals who are non-binary, who are intersex. It talks about the Black, Indigenous, and the other people of color within our communities, in the queer communities, and says out loud things that have not been said in many, many spaces. And I want to thank the council and the mayor for adopting this resolution. It is incredibly important. It is incredibly meaningful. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope to see you all at Pride Month or Pride Week. We are building what looks to be a small maze-like craziness outside your home offices there. And it is going to be so important to bring our stories, our history, our community to your space, and for you all to not only be there and see the history and recognize it, but also for you all to be at the march and rally and hear those voices that don't often get heard. So thank you, thank you, thank you once again. And thank you for this incredible resolution. I look forward to receiving it sometime, Amy, in council chairperson, I beg your pardon, in person. Happy Pride Month.
Rob, thank you so much for those words. I got a little teary while you were talking, and it's so true that this is a bold and beautiful statement, and I'm grateful to be a part of it, not only with the queer community, but obviously with City Council. And Rob, I just want to thank you for all of the work that you do for the queer community and for the Utah Pride Center, the services, as Mayor Mendenhall mentioned, the services that you provide, particularly for many of our youth who struggle throughout the state of Utah. You've provided and do continue to provide a safe haven, a place where people can get to know who they are themselves and be just as out loud as our statement was, but they get to be out loud and their voices get to be heard. And so thank you so much for your service to our community, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, everyone. With that, we are, by Rob, thank you, moving to section G, and this is our public hearings. At the beginning of our meetings today, I went over the rules of decorum and the guidelines for the City Council. It's just a friendly reminder that all of those rules still apply at this public hearing. So if there is any profanity or disrespect, we will mute you and you will forfeit your time to address the council tonight. I have been in these council meetings a lot, and I trust that many of you and all of you will give your comments in a respectful and open way so that everybody can be heard and feel safe in this space. I want to just also mention that the public hearings, there will be several items, and we'd ask that you speak to just that particular item during the public hearing. If there are items outside of the public hearings that we have right now, you can make those comments during the general comment section, which is later on in tonight's agenda. So I'd ask that people stick to this sort of public hearing agenda item, and we will give a short introduction for each of those agenda items so you know what we're speaking on. And I appreciate everyone who is here to speak to these items. As per always, we have Robert, who will announce 3 names so that people can be prepared. He'll unmute your mic. Your time will begin, and then at the 2-minute timer, we will say time and your mic will be muted. As always, again, if you want to say more, please reach out to staff. They will direct you in the right direction to leave more comments if you do not get to finish what you were intending to say. And if you do not wish to speak, that's also okay. We appreciate people being here and listening. And so you can message our staff and say that you're just here to listen, or if your name gets called, you can simply just tell us that you're here to listen. With that, our very first public hearing is on budget amendment number 9 for fiscal year 2020-2021. And before we begin, I will turn it over to Ben Ledke, our staff policy analyst, to give a short introduction. Thank you, Ben.
This is the second public hearing for budget amendment number 9. There are 17 items totaling just over $10 million in expenditures. Some of the items are $293,000 to build office space for an expansion of the Emergency Management Division, $41,000 for a security upgrade to the 911 department, and moving $8.5 million of transportation funding into the Capital Improvement Program Fund. So those projects are part of the annual open and competitive process. The council held a public briefing on this budget amendment on May 11th. Earlier today, they held a follow-up briefing. 2 additional items were added at the briefing today. A $1.1 million reimbursement to the general fund balance or the city's rainy day fund using American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA dollars from the federal government. The other item was approving a second $500 payment to participants in the Salt Laker card program using the last of the CARES Act funding. The video of both briefings are available on the council website and YouTube. The budget staff report, the administration's proposal, and all the supporting attachments are available in today's meeting packet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Bobby, we can get started.
Thank you, Council Chair. We have approximately 3 people to speak to this. First one being George Chapman, followed by Afa Aikona, and then Adam Abernathy. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, on Budget Amendment 9, Salt Lake City is bleeding cops. I think you're losing about 30 this last month. These are the best trained de-escalation cops in Utah. It doesn't matter where they're going, they are going. And Salt Lake will be left with just new cops that get $21 an hour, less than a starting bus driver. We are losing those 10-year experienced cops with hundreds of thousands of dollars of training. Some of you correctly estimated $500,000 worth of training. But that de-escalation simulation training can't be found anyplace else in Utah. Chief Brown, you're going to have a skeleton staff of new, poorly trained, low-income, inexperienced cops. Council, remember what former Chief Burbank told you when you bought the $500,000 de-escalation simulation system? He said he could have shot 13 justifiably in his career, but his training and experience resulted in no one shot. Again, this city is losing those experienced and best de-escalation trained cops in Utah. The city needs to implement a $10,000 retention bonus, even those that have left, for those with 5 years of experience. This budget amendment is the last chance to stop the bleeding of cops. Add a $10,000 retention bonus. The regular budget can work on a respectful salary, remembering that other departments in Utah value our best trained de-escalation cops $8 to $10 an hour more. Otherwise, police critical incidents will increase with situations that inexperienced and undertrained officers are going to face. You don't even have enough for trained for hiring social workers. Please implement a retention bonus. Those are my comments.
Council Chair, it looks like the other 2 speakers that we have either indicated they are not. Actually, give me one moment. I just got a message about someone wishing to speak. Catherine Mulligan, you are unmuted. Catherine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello?
You're very soft.
Is this helping?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I just wanted to speak to address George Chapman saying that the UTA bus drivers get more than incoming policemen. That's untrue. The starting wage is $16 an hour. and then it goes up progressively to 1844 and then 2369 through a 5-year period. And I would like to mention that they also provide a real service to the city. I yield my time.
Council Chair, we don't have any more speakers to this item.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you to everyone who commented. I will look for a motion on this item.
Members, you don't have to, oh, there's a motion sheet. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a motion sheet. Thank you.
I think the expectation was that you would close the public hearing and either adopt or refer to a later date.
Thank you, Jen.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer to a future date.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I'll go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Perfect. That passes. We are moving on to our next item. Sorry. The ordinances listed as items G2 to G13 are all of the ordinance revisions that are associated with the implementation of the mayor's recommended budget for Salt Lake City, including the library fund for fiscal year 2021-2022. All ordinances will be heard as one public hearing item today, and this is the public's second opportunity to provide input. I will turn the time over to Jen Bruno to give a short introduction. And Jen, if you don't mind, during your introduction, if you can just read kind of an abbreviated version of all of the ordinances so people understand what we're all talking about, please.
So this is the final public hearing to accept public comment on the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year. We did want to note that for the public that specific allocations for CIP projects will have their own hearings later in the summer. The council will continue discussing specific departments in more detail at each of their work sessions, which have concluded in May, although you can go back and review the videos, and some in June, some Tuesdays and Thursdays. The mayor's proposed budget and staff reports analysis for all departments are available on the city's budget hub on our website, as well as a hub relating to the topic of racial equity and policing. So we would encourage people to go there to view that. The council may decide to make adjustments to the mayor's recommended budget, and those adjustments would be discussed in a public council work session. The council is scheduled, hopefully, to adopt the budget on June 15th, although by law they have until June 30th. And then just really quickly running through the ordinances. Ordinances relating to employee compensation for represented employees are considered, and that's with the 3 unions that are for the city. Ordinances to adopt the rate of tax levy for the city and library fund, and then an ordinance adopting the library fund. Also an ordinance adopting specific fees that the city charges, as well as an ordinance adopting proposed departmental reorganizations. And I believe that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jen. Bobby, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Council Chair. We have approximately 30 people here to speak to this item, beginning with Eliza McKinney, followed by Beverly Cooper, and then Josh Kielowitz. Eliza, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Eliza McKinney. I am here again today asking for the same thing I asked for a year ago. I am asking you to defund the police and invest in our community. A year ago, you said that you needed more time, that this was just the beginning of fundamental changes you wanted to make for our city. Instead, you have championed and cheered for the police, voted yes to every budget amendment they have asked for, making this the largest police budget in city history, and added new police officers to the force after promising not to do so. It is now clear that the minor reforms you made were done haphazardly and desperately, simply to preserve your own self-image in the face of radical social change happening across the country. All of the money you took from the police, you returned and expanded through budget amendments. The money you promised to reinvest in communities of color was swallowed up once more in paying for police overtime. Now, only 1 year later, you are deciding whether to increase the budget by 5%. This is a 55% increase since 2013. That's not even a full 10 years and a 55% increase. SLCPD and the millions that you all invest in them is out of control. They use their power to terrorize and abuse our community, and you have continuously voted in their support. We are not asking you to wave a magic wand or fix all of our problems overnight. We are asking you to be brave and innovative leaders for our city. We are asking you to invest in our future, rather than continue to build up and preserve a violent and racist institution.
Time.
Watching your actions over
Council Chair, next we have Beverly Cooper, followed by Josh Kivlovitz, and then Brinley Frolich. Beverly are unmuted.
I wanted to address the budget for the Department of Public Lands. Is this the right place to do it? Yes?
Yes, it is.
I want to address the ongoing funding for the Trails Master Plan in the Department of Public Lands. Stopping the trail building has given the department time to repair and mitigate some of the problems with the new trails. I want to look at the first goal in the Trails Goal Statement in the Master Plan to see how we're doing. It's called Environmental Sustainability, which says trails avoid sensitive habitat, minimize erosion, sedimentation, and vegetation disturbance, and make efficient use of available natural lands. The wild and scenic nature of the foothills landscape is protected, fragile, natural, or cultural features are avoided. In reality, the trails have destroyed fragile habitat and natural lands, native vegetation, and animal habitat. There's enough erosion that trails have had to be closed for repairs in their short existence. After the last rain, there were some significant slides that preclude the loose use of some trails. There's significant visual pollution and scarring. Geologic destruction has occurred like unstable trails and hillsides. There's no piece of this goal that's been met. We are sadly off track on what was a good vision. I'm not blaming you. Together we could go through each of these trails goals statements and see how they have not been met. I will deliver a document to you that does just this. I invite you to visit the trails and see if it looks like what you thought it would. I'm asking you to segregate any funds intended for future trail building into a restricted account because the work does not match the master plan. Funds should not be released until specific conditions are met relative to the master plan. By doing this, you will ensure environmentally sound, sustainable, enjoyable, low maintenance trails as we move forward. This is your duty and your legacy. Thank you.
Next, we have Josh Kivlovitz, followed by Brinley Frolich, and then Liz DeFriz. Give me one moment while I unmute Josh. Josh, you've been unmuted. Josh, you've been unmuted.
Hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, my name is Josh Kivlovitz. I'm a small business owner and social worker here in Salt Lake City. I would like to express my deep disappointment in the proposed budget that includes a 5% increase for the SLCPD. It is truly mind-blowing to me that you all have the audacity to sit here with this proposed budget after everything you said during the last budget cycle, talking about your commitment to meaningful change over time. You're not even making small steps this year. You're actively walking backwards by continuing to raise their budget. SLCPD already has 129% more officers than comparably sized cities. Our community came together last summer and spoke for literal hours in front of you, demanding that the police be defunded and that SLC redefine what public safety could look like. Cops cannot solve mental health, substance use, homelessness, and trauma, and usually just exacerbate the issues in our community. We do not need more funding for trainings and body cameras. Cops with these trainings and body cameras are still murdering and harassing our community members without any accountability. It is not dramatic or impulsive to reinvest the city budget into things that we know actually reduce crime: housing, access to food, healthcare, mental health, and substance use treatment. It makes sense. It's logical. It's painfully ironic to me that you consider this budget on the first day of Pride Month, a celebration of queers and trans folks fighting back against police brutality and harassment. Your declaration of pride for the LGBTQ+ community is hollow when you turn around and consider throwing more money at the police who continue to harass the most vulnerable of our LGBTQ community. And I say this especially for my fellow queers here sitting on the council. I urge you all to dream just a little bit bigger. Fines, violence, and incarceration just lead to more suffering and more crime. Public safety is rooted outside of the police system. It's rooted in a robust community, so please start investing that way. Thank you.
Following Josh, we have Brinley Froelich, followed by Liz DeFries, and then Crystal Key. Brinley, one moment. Brinley, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Brinley Froelich, and I'm a resident of Salt Lake City going on about a decade now. And I just wanted to say that while I commend the City Council and Mayor for recognizing that we need to make changes to our city, your actions aren't backing up your words. The community has consistently been calling on you to defund the police. This is a really straightforward and necessary demand of our city leaders. We'll never see changes in police violence if we continue to empower them and fund them more than we do meeting people's basic needs to survive. Changes in the budget are how we can change the priorities for our community, and the line items in the current proposed budget reveal that the city would rather prioritize the violent enforcement of an arbitrary law rather than helping to undo the damage, destruction, and trauma that many in our community have experienced from the impacts of policing and imprisonment. If you defunded the police and reduced the police force in half, we could invest that money back into the people of Salt Lake City who need access to resources that actually contribute to the wholeness and well-being of our city rather than to the police. Despite the cry that we need the police to protect us, which is often used as an excuse to keep funding them, the police don't keep us safe, they don't heal us, and they don't prevent any harm from happening. It's time for you to take seriously this demand to defund the police, and I'll use the rest of my time.
Council Chair, next we have Liz DeFries, followed by Crystal Key and then Joseph Johnson. Liz, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm Liz DeFries. I'm calling to urge the City Council to stop supporting gentrification and increase police funding in Salt Lake City. Specifically, I'm asking that you oppose the Learned Valley Vacation Ordinance, which will allow for another gentrification project in Rose Park with no consideration of those who are being displaced. I'm also asking you to abide by the promises you made last year to defund the police. Please read the entire Defund SLCPD post made by Decarcerate Utah, which you can find on the DU website or Facebook page. As outlined in the post, community members are demanding you reduce the police department budget and the number of police by 50%. And then importantly, reinvest these funds into supportive community programs. When you read DU's demand post, you can find more information about where these cuts can come from and what types of services to reinvest in, which are supported by research to actually create safer communities. And no, we don't mean that we want you to support exploitative panopticon work camps with no access to needed resources for people most in need of shelter, like projects run by the Other Side Academy. And no, we don't mean profit-driven healthcare models, which neglect patient care because service providers are overworked and underpaid. And no, we don't mean social workers acting as cops. Last, I want to respond to this idea that we need more police funding in areas with large unsheltered populations and the concern that reducing the police budget will make these areas more dangerous. First of all, we need to recognize the underlying need when folks call in saying the homeless are breaking into their bathrooms or defecating in public. It is infuriating to me that the solution suggested here is more police when you shouldn't have to be a genius to recognize the problem as a lack of access to maintained public bathrooms. If you don't like seeing people just trying to live on your street, then let's invest funds away from the police and into accessible permanent housing options. The police do not solve any symptoms of poverty, they only exacerbate them. To be clear, I'm not saying that harm does not happen when people are living in severe poverty. I'm saying that the solution is not the police. While While police want us to believe they keep us safe, in reality, only 11% of all serious crimes even result in an arrest, and about 2% end in a conviction. Police come after harm has already happened, and they do nothing to address the actual causes of crime. The suggested increase to the police budget are unethical and will only increase the harm that exists in our communities. Please do the right thing and divest funds from the police. Thank you.
Following Liz, we have Crystal Key, followed by Joseph Johnson, and then Taylor Money. One moment while I unmute Crystal. Crystal, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Crystal Kuh. And since we just heard about your support of the LGBTQIA community, I'm calling to ask the mayor and the city council to actually support us by defunding the police. The policing and incarceration does not lower crime rates, just as Brinley and Liz said. And to add to that, the root cause of crime is poverty and social environment. So that is lack of financial resources, housing stability, healthcare stability, meaningful employment opportunities. Also, you add to that the rising economic inequality, inaccessibility to resources, and social stigma due to racism and ableism. I would also like to remind you that BIPOC trans youth are the most vulnerable to homelessness and police violence. So please support us. Threatening the community with policing in prisons does not fix anything. Punishing people who have little options does not solve any problems. And continuing to funnel money away from actual proven methods of building safer cities into policing just reinforces this cycle. So we need to divest from the police, invest into healing the issues within our community. We need expanded and accessible rental assistance, community land trusts, allotments, counselors for our kids in schools, expanded health programs, etc. Our city budget could be going towards programs that offer communities financial and emotional security instead of allowing violence to rise, then pay cops to abuse us even further. So please defund the police and happy Pride Month. Thank you.
Following Crystal, we have Joseph Johnson, followed by Taylor Money, and then Abaha Goa. One moment while I unmute Joseph. Joseph, you've been unmuted.
Hello, council members. As I already said my comments at the beginning of this meeting, even though it was not the most appropriate time for that, I have already said my comments, so I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Following Joseph, we have Taylor Money, followed by Abhay Goel, and then Maeve Wall. One moment. Taylor, you're unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Money. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City and a student at the University of Utah. The grossly disproportionate allocation of $79 million to the Salt Lake City Police Department in 2020 is perpetuating a system of state-sponsored violence that repeatedly fails the citizens it claims to protect. In 2020, police in Utah killed 30 people. 40% of these shootings occurred while police were interacting with someone experiencing a mental health crisis. And although Black people only comprise 2% of the population, 10% of those killed by Utah police are Black. Rather than pouring taxpayer funds into this abusive system, the council should reallocate Salt Lake's budget to prioritize human resources, healthcare, and public transit. Thank you.
Following Taylor, we have Abhay Goel, and then Maeve Wall, and then Annie Charles. One moment. Abhay, you're unmuted.
Hello, Council. My name is Abhay Goyal. Thank you for the introduction and for the time to speak. I'm calling to express my concern regarding the Mayor's recommended budget for fiscal year 2021 and 22 with respect to the allocation of police funds. Prior discussions over the last year indicated a severe need for a decrease in said budget instead of the proposed $4 million increase. Specifically, in light of the current reality of police brutality, I'd like to highlight a reevaluation of the $657,000 increase in the budget for salary proposals, the $650,000 increase for encampment cleanup, proposed as an extension of budget amendment number 7 of fiscal year 2021, whose language includes some troublesome discussion of protests, and the $2.8 million increase for hiring despite the claims over the last year. I'd also like to highlight the $100,000 allocated to a mental health professional for the police, which, while valiant in some respects, is undermined by the fact that the city does not provide similar services to those individuals who are brutalized by the police at this time. These funds would provide more value in housing projects, food equity work, education, and the like. Given the mayor and this council's acknowledgement of the 1969 Stonewall riots, I ask that we remember their cause and our own history. The riots were fundamentally an anti-police right for LGBTQ rights. Divest, defund. Happy Pride Month. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Maeve Wall, followed by Annie Charles, and then George Chapman. One moment while I unmute Maeve.
Hi.
You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Maeve. I want to emphasize first that, again, since 2013, Salt Lake City has continuously increased the police department budget by 55%. So I'm calling again with my community members, just as we did last year, to ask that you defund the SLCPD and cut the current budget in half. I want to focus specifically on the part of the budget. Our demand is to cut the funding of the administrative and operations support to $13.85 million, and in particular to prioritize cuts to school resource officers among several other positions. I am a PhD student studying the school to prison pipeline at the University of Utah, and have studied extensively the dangerous impact of police officers in schools and communities. I've read story after story of 5-year-old children handcuffed, taken from their classrooms, of students arrested, even here in Salt Lake, for minor behavioral infractions. This criminalization of students typically targets students who are already marginalized and can impact the course of their lives. Keeping police out of schools is one way to reduce the harmful impacts of youth involvement. Research shows, that police officers do not make schools safer as a whole, and they usually just work to arrest students. This is exacerbated by racial disparities. Black students in particular are arrested in schools at disproportionately high rates, and in Utah, compared to white peers, American Indian students are 8.8 times more likely to be arrested in schools. Pacific Islander students are 3.3 times more likely to be arrested. At the same time, the ACLU can tell us that there's a lot of positions that are understaffed in schools. 1.7 million students are in schools with police, but no counselors. 3 million students are in schools with police, but no nurses. 6 million students are in schools with police, but no school psychologists. 10 million students are in schools with police, but no social workers. 14 million students are in schools with police, no counselor, nurse, psychologist, or social workers. So in response to research and community demands, many cities have already removed cops from schools, and I ask that Salt Lake City joins the rank.
Council Chair, next we have Annie Charles, followed by George Chapman, and then Natalia Sapham. One moment while I unmute Annie. Annie, you've been unmuted.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Annie Charles. I'm a therapist here in Salt Lake. I'm calling on you to cut the police budget by 50%. This might seem extreme, but in 2020, 40% of people shot by police in Utah were having mental health crisis. It's seen a record number of police shootings. Why are we still having them respond to these calls? The police chief, Mike Brown, has stated before, the police are the most expensive and least effective tool for mental health, substance use, and issues of homelessness. This money should be reallocated to a civilian response team as recommended by your audit and other community supports. This is a proven effective strategy in cities like Eugene and Denver. It should not be withheld within the police budget, however, because as your audit stated, they do not accurately and transparently budget their funds. Outside of their deadly response to mental health, they do not prioritize the safety of our community. On a Zoom call last year, a spokesman, Detective Greg Wilkins, told a group of community members to report all property crime, that it's caused by a decriminalization of drugs, and that people using meth and heroin were a quote-unquote danger to the morals of our society. When pressed on why he was only focusing on these drugs, for example, when alcohol increases the risk of domestic violence, he stated, we're looking at the property crime, not the domestic violence stuff. How are we supposed to feel safe in a community when they reduce domestic violence to stuff? It's an indicative of an issue within the culture. The priority is not healing and safety. As you all said last year when you cut the police budget, that it was only the beginning to deconstruct the problems in our systems and fix them. Over the course of the year, you've increased the budget by $8 million and will be adding another 5%. You've made reforms that led to a 15% decrease in use of force, but how many people are still victim to the police? Incremental changes may look nice in a mayor's op-ed or a campaign platform, but it still leaves our neighbors vulnerable. We need to make drastic changes, and that can start with divesting from the police and reinvesting in our community. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have George Chapman, followed by Natalia Southam, and then Ian Harris. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, I keep asking. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
Can anybody hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hundreds of protesters are demanding defunding the police, but every month 10,000 are demanding more police. Protesters are demanding better focus on de-escalation training for police, but the best trained in Utah are leaving Salt Lake City police for other departments, and de-escalation trained cops are being lost. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in de-escalation training lost, and the only way to stop the loss is to give retention bonuses and higher pay, or tell the protesters, sorry, we lost the best trained de-escalation trained cops. Sorry, we don't even have enough cops to hire social workers. If other cities believe our cops are worth $8 to $10 an hour more, this city needs to quickly increase salaries or wait 5 years to restore a well-trained de-escalation department. Chief Brown, you make the mayor look good, but it's time to stop putting a smiley face on this. This is important. You, Chief, need to push to retain these officers. And Salt Lake City Transportation continues its war on cars by removing parking on Highland Drive. Police brutality is nothing compared to the pedestrians that would be forced to cross a busy street and risk death by forcing people to cross a street that used to be 4 lanes. Forcing residents to drive around the block on formerly quiet residential streets increases pollution. Duh. This city should not increase pollution. What really bothers me is that this city puts in bulb outs and crosswalks to protect pedestrians, but it forces them to cross the street, despite the jaywalking laws. So let's defund the transportation department. Those are my comments.
Next, we have Natalia Southam, followed by Ian Harris, and then Pachuco Latero. Give me one moment while I unmute Natalia. Natalia, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you for giving me time. I'm honestly jaded speaking at this meeting because last year we were told that the small budget cut was only the beginning, but here we are with a 5% increase. There is real evidence in tax savings, crime reduction, and poverty reduction when we invest in the community. So it feels so archaic to throw money at the police. There isn't very much evidence of the good they are doing or change behavior since our calls to action, yet we see real tax savings when we have things like rental assistance, mental health services, public spaces. And a lot of these seem like very basic necessities for a city, yet they are not being met because they're being prioritized to meet things like counselors for the police or overtime for abatements and body cams, just to name a few things. Yet many of us are paying so much in taxes without having our basic needs met or even being like having a sense of safety. We do not need to hire more officers or pay them more. The backbones of our society are being paid much less. And the police are not crime prevention or harm reduction. They are reactionary and dangerous, and they do not protect people that look like me or my family. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Ian Harris, followed by Pachuco Latero, and then Aaron Moore. Ian, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I just first wanted to say how grateful I am and privileged I feel to be speaking here today, and how torn I am in speaking. I don't think I'm the best informed. I always have more questions than I do answers, and I'm so glad that there are other people on this call who brought their receipts and their stats and everything. I just want to echo all of those points. There are countless hundreds of voices that I wish could be heard here and whose thoughts and feelings I wish could be expressed in this kind of a forum. But whose needs list is so much longer than mine. And far more important than convincing them that coming and talking at somewhere like this would fulfill those needs. I have worked for the road home for the last couple of years, and so even, well, there are a lot of stories that I wish could be highlighted more than mine, and but mine's the one that I have. So, and I'm not even sure where to start on it. In this amount of time, in the first week of working there, felt that, wow, our education system has really failed a lot of people, just with so many things that they couldn't understand or were having difficulties with that I didn't understand. It all felt like something our education system failed on.
Time.
Council Chair, next we have Pachuco Latero, followed by Aaron Moore, and then Afa Iacona. Pachuco, you're unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm just here to echo a lot of the comments to defund SLCPD. For y'all to take steps to eliminate the funding from the non-departmental budget and other departments reserved for policing operations, invest the funds diverted from the police department into supportive community programs. To also reduce the police department budget by 50% from 79 million to 39.5 million. The reason why we're saying defund the police is because the police are brutalizing us in our communities. For example, the Yanagi family in Rose Park was brutalized 3 weeks ago, and none of the council members went up to their homes and to see if they were okay. So this is, and they are a Latino family. This is the reality that we got to face on our side of town of being brutalized by the cops. So we're asking you guys to please reduce the police department budget by 50%. Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Aaron Moore, followed by Afa Iacona, and then Michael Valentine. Aaron, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm just calling in today to, like others on the call, express a desire I expressed a year ago as well. I want to and have wanted the SLCPD to receive no further funding and instead have its budget cut and those funds redirected to programs and community resources that were needed last year and are still needed now in Salt Lake City. If we want less camps and less camp abatements, the answer is not police endlessly and violently shifting those camps around town. It's giving people the resources to stay off the streets in the first place. Or once they do get to the streets, to camp in places that are safe with bathrooms, running water, access to shelter, and needle exchanges for those living with substance addiction, a huge problem in Utah. If we want less homeless people, the solution is not police helping landlords kick tenants out of apartments during a housing crisis, it's rent assistance and affordable housing. The list of community goods that are needed and not in the least helped by the presence of policing goes on and on. If it's data you need to untangle this supposedly complicated ask, it's there, and I know you know of community organizations like Decarcerate Utah who have listed and done the research on those demands, and I know you know how to contact them. And I'm just asking that you give the concept of defunding a real fiscally backed chance and work towards new solutions towards helping residents of Salt Lake thrive outside punitive so-called solutions like policing that only reinforce cycles of violence, crime, and poverty. And to quickly respond to former commenter George, protesters are not asking for de-escalation training because we know that doesn't work. That's why we're asking to get rid of the police. We know they don't serve us no matter what training they have. Stop throwing money at something that doesn't work. Thank you. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Afi Iacona, followed by Michael Valentine, and then Charles Becker. Afa, you're unmuted.
Hi, yes, sorry, this is Afa actually had to step out, so I'll just for a business call, I'll take over for her. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I'm also echoing everyone on the this meeting, and I am a Pacific Islander, so being a person of color, you can really feel and see how how heavy the racism is towards the police on our end, because so many times I've been pulled over for no reason, and that I'm just one Pacific Islander. So you can just imagine all the other Pacific Islanders who are in elementary and all the way up to the U of U, and all the other universities that y'all see us playing sports or whatever, going to school and reaching our dreams. But I feel like there should be other ways to kind of communicate, or like not having the police to get involved, maybe having some of our mothers or some of our uncles or some of the people in the community who can actually be there to help out our own community, instead of having new people being hired on and just like then we start it all over. And let's give us that training for them to help them train to communicate with our kids, our youth, and our adults, and folks who are who are incarcerated, and also folks who are Black, Native, not just me, a Pacific Islander, but other folks who are of color. So if y'all can just like please just look into that and not keep funding the police, because you've seen what happened in America 2020, and now it's like continuing in 2021. So what are we going to do to make things different? I'm done. Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Valentine, followed by Charles Becker, and then Carolyn Kello. Moment while I unmute Michael. Michael, you're unmuted.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make another statement about the theater in the general comment section, but I just wanted to shout out my support for the Brown Berets and what they're fighting for in the Rose Park area, and then also the Wasatch Tenants United fighting for affordable housing. Before I got really involved with the theater, my background's in Black Lives Matter, and I've been part of the SLC CAG meetings, and I know Mike Brown and all this stuff. So I have a big background in policing, and I want to speak out against raising the police budget. More policing won't solve issues of homelessness. It won't solve issues of housing or drug use or anything like that. We need to think smarter about this and be more effective where our dollars are going, not to violence, but to actual real long-term solutions. Instead of spending overtime to just chase the homeless camps around town, I think it's a lot more important to figure out long-term care for them with housing and social workers and things like this. So I really appreciate everyone getting on here and speaking out against this. And I think we should be smart about this. And I'd like to add that the history of policing in America comes from colonialism and genocide. And this should be a conversation that should be led by communities of color, because they are disproportionately affected by policing. And this is the issue where they need to be centered. And especially, as people mentioned with Stonewall and Pride today. So thanks so much. That's all.
Council Chair, next we have Charles Becker, followed by Caroline Kello, and then Catherine Mulligan. One moment while I unmute Charles. Charles, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Charles Becker. I'm a small business owner here in Salt Lake. I'm here to ask to defund the Salt Lake Police Department and instead allocate those funds to areas which could actually help the community, such as affordable housing and other resources to help the homeless population in Salt Lake. Thank you. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Caroline Kello, followed by Catherine Mulligan, and then Taylor Lynn Berry. Carolyn, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Caroline, and I'm a small business owner, a therapist in the Salt Lake City area, and a daughter of a criminal judge. I work with mostly marginalized communities, and I'm here to ask that the City Council follow through with their promise they made last year to continue to defund the police. Recently, a colleague who isn't present and who works for a community crisis team told me a story of how one of her clients was killed when the police were dispatched instead of her crisis team. This person was one of just 30 people who were killed by the SLCPD this last year. I'm concerned about the increase of the police budget when it seems these funds would be better spent on community mental health interventions and harm reduction resources for people who suffer most at the hands of the SLCPD, nonviolent drug users. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Next, we have Catherine Mulliken, followed by Taylor Lynn Berry, and then Haley Lamar. Catherine, you're unmuted.
Hi, I am a landscaper and have lived in this city for 9 years, and I work at some properties that have lots of natural shelter and privacy, which is something that the city of Salt Lake does not provide for its unhoused citizens in order for them to urinate and defecate. Such a basic, purely human need is then criminalized despite the fiscal negligence of this council and really the rather blatant disregard for the most vulnerable groups in the city. And like this is only a really small tributary at the confluence of all of these issues of bills and resolutions to support more luxury condos, the tearing down of historical buildings that could be allocated for use by the community for anything other than funding to the police budget, especially after multiple promises were made to reduce the police budget. This just seems dishonest and also like a really poor investment in the people that are actually here living in your city and experiencing police violence and brutality every day. I yield my time.
Next, we have Taylor Lynn Berry, followed by Haley Lamer, and then Anna Bugby. Taylor, you were unmuted.
So being Black in America already means I have to question the intentions of law enforcement. I don't feel safe when I see a cop. I immediately become fearful and I feel at risk. Allocating these funds to the police department would only increase that fear. Since moving from Michigan to Utah, it's very clear that there's discrimination against people of color everywhere, and it's blatant here in Salt Lake City. Last year, 10% of people killed by the SLC police were Black, yet Black people only make up 2% of the state population. I fear that putting funding towards more police officers will only cause those statistics to rise and more inequity to take place. That money could go towards educating our police force in cultural awareness or whatever other types of resources we could think of that could help them understand the people of color in their community. We don't need more cops, we need more compassion and empathy. I'm done.
Council Chair, next we have Haley Limmer, followed by Anna Bugby and Anna Davis. Haley, you're unmuted.
Thank you. As a professional landscaper, dancer, and artist, I'm invested in communities of workers of manual labor, creatives, and people who work without benefits. These communities often don't have access to affordable and accessible mental health resources. Experiencing the hardships in life without the necessary mental support is isolating and leads to deeper problems that can be easily avoided by having professionals who offer mental support. I demand defunding the police and reducing the number of police on patrol units. We must invest mental health resources for therapists and social workers to offer free therapy programs for all individuals. I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Anna Bugby, followed by Anna Davis. Anna, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. I would like to just echo the sentiments of the need to reduce the police budget and invest the cost savings into supportive community programs like mental health resources and other things that can support people who are in situations where they need basic life services. The fact that the budget is increasing this year after promises to decrease it last year is embarrassing, frankly, and how can we trust our leaders when they don't follow through with their promises? I yield my time.
Council Chair, next we have Anna Davis. Anna, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm a 12-year resident of Salt Lake City, and I just want to say that I'm extremely disappointed with the proposed increase in the Salt Lake City Police Department after promises made by this council 1 year ago. I'd like to reiterate the demands to defund the police, to currently reduce the police employees by 50%, reduce the police department budget by 50%, and instead invest in supportive community programs. Please make our city a leader in positive change. Earlier, someone said it perfectly when she said, stop throwing money at something that doesn't work. Thank you.
Council Chair, we don't have any more speakers for this item.
Thank you so much, Bobby, and thank you to all of our commenters today. Council members, we have been at it, besides the whole day, at the formal meeting for about an hour and a half, so I thought we would take just a little 5 to 10 minute break, so just meet you back here sometime.
Madam Chair, do you want to do a motion?
I do want to do a motion. That's why you're my vice chair. Thank you.
You got it. So I'd like to do that if you don't mind. I move the
Please
council.
do.
Let's see. Council continue. Let's see. I move the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Ferris. I think I'm still getting to know your voice and couldn't see you. So I will roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes. So let's all take a 5 to 10 minute, well, let's say closer to 5, but if we go over a little bit, comfort break. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, council members. Thank you to the public for allowing us to have a little break. We are at agenda H, part of our agenda, potential action items. The first item is an ordinance that would vacate a city-owned alley adjacent to properties at 1025 West North Temple, 1022, 1028, 1030, and 1032 West Learned Avenue. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt an ordinance vacating the subject alley.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? I will go ahead and roll call. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Sorry, I know you just got here, Chris, so it's the ordinance vacating the Learned Alley Avenue.
Yes, I know I was in the room. I just didn't have my camera on. Sorry. Yes.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure. And
Yes, I heard. I know we're voting on.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Anna is not here at this moment for this vote. That passes. Next item is H2, and it is regarding an ordinance that would vacate a city-owned alley known as the Fern Subdivision Alley located between 1000 East and 1100 East and between Wood Avenue and Logan Avenue. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance vacating the subject alley.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
I've got the death circles, Madam Chair, but I'm a yes if you can hear it.
We did hear that, if you can hear us. So that is a yes. I'm a yes. And Anna is, Councilmember Valdemoros is not present for this vote. So that passes. Let's see. At this time, we are moving on to our comments section. Are there any questions for the mayor? And also, Madam Mayor, thank you so much for being here as always. Council members, do we have any questions for Madam Mayor? I don't see any, so thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. This brings us to our general comment portion. Important that I say this. I hope people will respect this. The general comment section is for general topics, not for public hearings that we have already discussed. We have had the moments for those public hearings, and this is simply for general comments on anything else that was not presented in a public hearing today. I went over the city council rules of decorum earlier, and as always, those rules apply here as well. And as always, we are still accepting comments through the WebEx and through phone calls if your only option is to call in. And it is only 2 minutes. We recognize that is not a lot of time, but if you want to continue making comments, please contact our staff and they will direct you in the right place to continue making your comments. You can email, mail, call, text, Facebook, lots of ways to get in touch with us to give us your comments. At this point, Taylor Hill from our staff is also helping to moderate, and Robert Nutzman will be calling out the names as we have done throughout the day. So with that, I will turn the time over to Robert to get us started.
Thank you, Council Chair. First, we have Josh Kilovitz, followed by Brinley Froelich, and then Daniel Schelling. Josh, you're unmuted. It looks like Josh is not interested in speaking for general comment, so we will go ahead and move on to Brinley. Brinley, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'd just like to voice my disappointment about that vote for the Learned Alley vacation. These Lesso apartments are just another project that contributes to gentrification and rising rent, and it's the exact opposite of what our city needs. These projects displace beloved people from our community and erases the culture that keeps our city vibrant and nurturing. I honestly think the city should consider placing a moratorium on any new development until it can figure out how to house the people who are not already housed, to restore old houses and buildings full of rich history and cultural interests, such as the Utah Pantage Theater, and to give rental assistance to people and businesses who are struggling to pay there so they don't have to worry about moving somewhere new and uprooting their lives. And that's all I have to say.
Next, we have Daniel Schilling, followed by Hillary Jacobs, and then Gavin Knowles. One moment. Daniel, you're unmuted.
My name is Daniel Schelling, and I'm a 27-year resident of Salt Lake City in the Avenues, as well as an avid runner and hiker in the foothills above Salt Lake City. I would like to begin by thanking the City Council and Mayor Mendenhall for pausing further implementation of the Foothills Trail Master Plan last week, as a number of concerned residents have requested. This is indeed a welcome step. However, many of us are still concerned about the potential for continued implementation of Phase 1 of the master plan at the end of the 4-month pause, and the implementation of Phase 2 without carefully reviewing the many problems identified with the plan over the last 9 months. As a professional geologist, I'm particularly concerned with the way trails have been plowed out of geologically unstable hillsides along City Creek and on the hills above 18th Avenue Meadows, resulting in what are clearly unsustainable and potentially dangerous trails. My earlier concern with this issue has been verified by the development of significant slumps and washouts along several of the City Creek trails during the rainstorm of May 24, which has resulted in both trail closures and the need to repair damaged trails only 6 to 8 months after trail construction. The slumping and washouts seen along these trails were easily predicted, and how the master plan failed to identify these problems during trail design and how the city failed to recognize these problems prior to and during trail construction remains uncertain. But it is a clear indication that in many respects, both the master plan and its implementation are deeply flawed. Unfortunately, problems with both the master plan and its implementation are not restricted to geological stability and sustainability issues. I therefore think it is imperative that the City Council and Mayor Mendenhall insist that all aspects of the Foothills Trail Master Plan be carefully reviewed by not only city employees, but also by outside experts, trail users, and city residents prior to continuing further work on any trail construction. This may be the only way to ensure that any further trail development moves forward according to the stated goals of Salt Lake City, which include environmental sustainability, safety, and low maintenance. Thank you.
Next, we have Hillary Jacobs, followed by Gavin Knowles, and then Austin Wood. Hillary, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Hillary Jacobs, a 27-year resident of Salt Lake City. Thank you for pausing the active construction of the Foothills Trails Master Plan. Yet there is work that can and must be done during this time. Among your 5 stated trail systems goals, the section headed Enjoyable specifies that the new trails should, quote, cater to a variety of recreation types and also to a variety of desired experiences. Yet the master plan seems to prioritize only certain user groups rather than the variety that the plan explicitly states. Interestingly, while the beautiful foothills setting supports this goal, your plan restricts the vision and experience. I see no evidence of equitable outreach to or input from diverse user groups, many of whom actively enjoy our foothills. You've distinguished only 2 groups, pedestrians and mountain bikers, with no recognition of the many types of users that fall into each of these categories. Cyclists include road, mountain, downhill, and BMX riders. Pedestrians include walkers, hikers, runners, dog walkers, families with children, skiers, snowshoers, picnickers, bird watchers, wildlife photographers, botanists, school groups, boys and girls clubs, and those enjoying family reunions, weddings, birthday parties, and business gatherings, etc. Further, by virtue of the way trails have been designated, the 2 groups classified as pedestrians and mountain bikers have been pitted against each other. What benefit can arise from this? These areas are also used by citizens who speak a rich diversity of languages, most notably Spanish. For many immigrants, the foothills are a vital getaway from cramped apartments. Did the city reach out to any of these stakeholders in their own languages to find out how the master plan could accommodate them? Perhaps most egregiously, The master plan makes no acknowledgement of our Indigenous communities whose ancestral lands we occupy and unconscionably destroy. I hope that in the next 4 months, Parks and Trails begins the bedrock work of any master plan. Genuine outreach and engagement with all communities for whom it is ostensibly intended, not just the loudest, most moneyed, most privileged, and those given highest priority in your mountain bike master plan. It's time to create a genuine plan that is inclusive, equitable, and works for all.
Council Chair, next we have Gavin Nose, followed by Austin Wood, and then Toby Larson. Gavin, you're unmuted.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Salt Lake City Mayor and City Council for pausing construction of the Phase 1 Foothills Trail Plan. This moment of community reflection is critical because our future is at stake. My name is Gavin Noyes. I live in District 3 and I serve on the board of Save Our Canyons. I run, hike, and bike in the foothills almost every day. The Wasatch Mountains and foothills are the gem of our city. They are our coastline, our central park, and serve as an escape to everyday people every day. Today, I'm here to ask the City Council to redo and expand the vision for the Foothills Trail Plan by allowing us to develop a citizens' alternative and incorporate the many values that were overlooked by the original plan. The reason for this are 1, to protect the environment, 2, to correct the failure of process and insufficient public engagement, and 3, to create a legacy of land stewardship and recreational opportunity that we as citizens can all be proud of for generations to come. We can't mess this up as we only have this small area of naturally intact lands left. At Save Our Canyons, we have always advocated for drawing the sharpest of lines between our urban and natural environments. We want to see a city bustling with diversity and full of culture, and to have that stand in stark contrast to natural lands that are immediately adjacent to downtown and our neighborhoods. Lands that are ecologically intact, diverse, and abundant with clean water, fresh air, healthy soils, and wildlife. We have this balance today thanks to generations of foresight and caretaking of these same foothills. Save Our Canyons is in favor of increasing trails. We are active proponents of mountain biking in these mountains. However, we must also look at ways of balancing uses and opportunity in these foothills without sacrificing cultural, environmental, and other community values. It is very possible to find a home for all these values, even given the increased use from our growing population. Thank you for considering revoking the plan as it currently stands and allowing us the opportunity to create a future that is better than what will be realized if we don't take the time to talk and listen to all people who depend on these incredible lands we all enjoy. Thank you so much.
Council Chair, next we have Austin Wood, followed by Toby Larson and then Michael Valentine. Austin, you're unmuted.
All right, hi everybody. My name's Austin Wood. I've lived in Salt Lake for about 3 years now, transplanted from Los Angeles. I really just wanted to voice my support for pretty much everything that was said today by the community, and just urge everyone, every elected official here to just listen to the community. It sounds like they've done the research on every specific topic that they're here for. And they're very happy to give you that research, and probably have tried to, and probably you've taken it, maybe not, but that's what we're here for, is to talk to you and to tell you what we think is best for our city, because we're here, we're in it, and a lot of us are underrepresented. And so I just want to voice my support for pretty much everything that was said today, and just urge you to listen to us and take into account what we're talking about. So thank you for letting me talk, and happy Pride Month.
Next we have Toby Larson, followed by Michael Valentine and then Cindy Cromer. Toby, you're unmuted.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am the Yale Crest Community Council Chair, and I am speaking as an individual citizen. I've been hearing a lot of traffic issues, specifically speed in residential areas, as well as commercial traffic violating regulations. I would like us to investigate as a city a way to assess the vehicle and not the driver, and create fees for vehicles that are operating outside the rules, and eliminate traffic stops take it completely out of the criminal end and instead make it basically an excessive use fee that can be assessed by license plate via cameras or other type of technologies. Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Valentine, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Mae Wall. Michael, you're unmuted.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I'll try to talk fast. I have so much to talk about. One real quick fun fact, since it is Pride Month and the start of Pride, I'd like to mention that in the 1910s, there was an array of drag dancers at the Pantages. You know, so by destroying that theater, you're destroying one of the oldest parts of queer history in the city. It's pretty fascinating and amazing. We have a series about it. Anyway, so I talked earlier about some of this stuff with the RDA and the lies and corruption going back, you know, several years now. What needs to happen here is, you know, it's time for you guys on the council and the mayor to make this right. You know, this deal needs to be stopped immediately from Hines and LaSalle. It was built off lies and corruption and fraud. And how are we supposed to have a planning commission meeting next week when the whole deal was set up from lies from the beginning about the historic registry, from the restoration costs, from all this stuff? I'm only mentioning a few things. My investigation is 30 pages long. You know, there's lots to add from there. You know, and then there needs to be a full audit and investigation into the RDA. The theater needs to be open to the public so people can go in and see it. We need to have real experts go in and actually finally put accurate restoration costs together. And, you know, this is a very serious matter that goes way beyond the theater. This goes into the heart of our democracy, of what this powerful agency that controls tens of millions of dollars and dozens of acres in the city is unilaterally doing, going against the will of the people, the ability for you guys to do your jobs as the city council and mayor to be educated with facts. And it needs to never happen again. You know, this needs to something needs to seriously change here, and the theater needs to finally be restored and freed from the 6-year-long grasp of exclusive agreements from Hines and LaSalle. I thank you for your time. I'm really excited to talk to you more. We have so much information, and we would love to have a public meeting about the RDA, this corruption, and the future of the theater, and bring all the experts with us, Preservation Utah, Evergreen, Architectural Arts, and you know, really have a serious, deep conversation about this.
Council, next we have Cindy Cromer, followed by Mae Wall, and then Kathleen Bratcher. Cindy, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Cindy Cromer. Because you're dealing with the budget, I thought my comments about land use tonight should focus on the financial consequences of wayward land use. In this case, using the application by Trolley Square Ventures in 2016 as an example. Of course, the filing fee never begins to cover the quality of the planning division's work. I want to look at some of the other ways that the city went in the hole on the request from Trolley Square Ventures. First, the city's position regarding notification was not upheld by the state ombudsman for property rights. That didn't cost the city anything initially, but the city had to rewrite the ordinance based on the ombudsman opinion, and that process took years of staff time. The city also had to write the ordinance for the FBU in 2 zone, which was never intended to be used next to any zone except FBU in 1, and there was no FBU in 1 anywhere in the historic district, much less adjacent to the proposed rezone. The hearing at the Planning Commission had to be redone because of the issue of notification, and parts of my house became impassable from the accumulated clutter of this cat and mouse game in land use. I don't know how to assign a cost to the time that the city attorneys and planners spent on this one project. The developer had an architect, an attorney, an historian, and a lobbyist on his payroll. The disruptions in my own life and the lives of my neighbors were considerable. And no one was opposed to the redevelopment of the parking lot. No one. Everyone was in favor of the redevelopment of the surface parking lot. Most of us had anticipated it for years. In the rearview mirror, it is clear to me that we should have started with a small area planning process for the block. A small area plan would have addressed the complexity of the historic overlay, the mix of existing zones, and the interface of commercial and residential uses. Previously, the city had used this tool frequently, especially in the central community. The small area plans allowed development to proceed more efficiently and also identified ways to address problems in land use. We don't use these small area plans anymore. We don't take the tool out of the toolbox because we don't have time.
Council Chair, next we have Mae Wall, followed by Ian Harris, and then Adam Witt. Maeve, you're unmuted.
Hi, thanks for hearing me again, and thank you for what I know has been a long day of meetings. I hope that you're able to let our comments sink in as in the next few days. I just wanted to mention my support of the Rose Park Brown Berets and my disappointment in your recent, in the past few minutes, approval of the Learned Alley vacation. This ordinance allows the Lasso Apartments to undertake another gentrification project that the poor and working class families in the community will not be able to afford. The families that have lived in these homes have been displaced and are not properly being compensated to obtain a new home in Rose Park. And further, I think that it's right that we halt all new housing developments in Salt Lake City until we can provide sustainable long-term housing, not tiny homes, for all the residents who are currently forced to live on the streets. Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Ian Harris, followed by Adam Witt, and then Pachuco Lotero. It looks like Ian Harris has left, so we will go ahead and move down to Adam Witt. Adam, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Adam Witt. I'm a Salt Lake City resident whose comments today hope to bring awareness to the council about the amazing things going on at the tennis centers, and that the city should consider a budget amendment to support requests that would improve the tennis centers for decades to come. A little background on me. I'm originally from Carson City, Nevada. I played professional baseball for the Houston Astros from 2015 to 2017, but was diagnosed with leukemia in 2017, which caused me to retire and move to Salt Lake to receive treatment at Huntsman Cancer Center. While recovering from the initial diagnosis of leukemia, I got a job as the manager at the Liberty Park Tennis Center and found that it was a supportive and flexible working environment during my treatments at Huntsman. With my background as a high school tennis player, professional baseball player, and my new career as a professional golfer, I've seen it all as far as sports. What is going on at these two tennis centers is miraculous and should be celebrated. The dedicated volunteer foundation that supports Liberty Hills Tennis has spearheaded over $2.5 million of savings to Salt Lake City for necessary improvements and upgrades at both facilities. All funds have been exhausted. Now is the time for the city, who ultimately owns the property, to add some skin in the game. As someone with my own foundation, which specializes in underserved youth sports scholarships, I understand the need to give back. And every dollar that the Coach Mike's Friends of Public Tennis Foundation has put into capital improvements at the tennis centers is now every dollar they will not be able to put towards underserved youth in our city and community. I'm proud of what the Liberty Hills tennis team has done with these two tennis centers. The city should be proud of Liberty Park and Wasatch Hills Tennis Center and find it is the best time for Salt Lake City to invest and participate in improving these public tennis centers. Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Pachuco Lotero, followed by Afa Aikona, and then Emiliano Love. Pachuco, you are unmuted.
Yes, Pachuco Lautaro with the Brown Berets again. I am very disappointed on you guys' decision about the ordinance. You guys are allowing for gentrification to occur in Rose Park and on the west side. You know, you guys are allowing Jared Hall, who's the applicant for the Luso Apartments, to obtain a construction permit. The Luso Apartments is another gentrification project in our community that we, poor working class, will not be able to afford. The families that have lived there and the homes have been displaced and not properly compensated to obtain a new home in Rose Park. Shame on Jared Hall and Riley Rogers for pushing longtime residents out of our community and for destroying the culture and character of our neighborhood just for them to make a profit off of us. And you guys, council members, you guys are all bystanders and contributors to gentrification, and this is something that you guys need to be held accountable. Please stop the ordinance, stop the Luso Apartments. Thank you.
Next, we have Afa Aikano, followed by Emiliano Love, and then Tamara White. Afa, you're unmuted.
Oh, sorry. Fa also, she's still in the business meeting, so I'll. This is D Tavai.
Yes, no, I'm also disappointed on the development of the Luso apartments in the Rose Park area. Um, for me, I feel like nothing's really changing. Like the only thing changing is that y'all are building and building more and more, and like it's just not looking good for us as folks who live in the community and been living here for quite a while, and different other places. But here in Salt Lake City, where we all connected as community members, grandpa, elders, moms, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, it feels like y'all just pushing us out and bringing new things in. And what kind of community are you trying to build? Like, do you want us to stay here, or do you want to develop more and more money? Because it feels like it's just power and money at this point. And it's like, I don't know, y'all bought or something, or what is it gonna take for us to fight more and more to push us to work together? Because that's the main thing about being in a community, is that we all work together. And the council member, the governor, the state, how can we all work together? Brown, black, Asian, whatever it takes for us to work together. And let's be the change in Salt Lake, so that way other cities can look at us and be like, dang, we want to be like them. And so I just want to share that.
Next, we have Emiliano Love, followed by Tamara White, and then David Berg. Emiliano, you're unmuted. Em, are you still there? You're unmuted. We will follow up with her. Next, we have Tamara White, followed by David Berg. Tamara, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Tamara White, and I am part of the Powerful Moms Who Care that is represented through the Crossroads. And I'm a single mother who resides at Palmer Court, which is run through the road home. And our community is lacking consistency and safety. There's our main thing that we would like to see is a family-only unit for affordable housing. There is a concern of safety, which is not consistent. You once had a officer on property, but no longer have that, and it's just security, which is random of when it is there. There's also a concern of health. There's lacking needle disposal and garbage cans. So just would like to see a little bit more focus of this government ran program of housing to be safe for our families, because we're mixed with mental health singles, and it's not a safe place for our children to play in the community. Thank you.
Council Chair, we're going to try to go back to Emiliano. Em, you're unmuted. We're going to keep working with our Council Chair. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, who is David Berg. David, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you for taking my comments. I just want to kind of echo what Michael Valentine and so many of the others said. It's really disturbing the progression of the council and mayor, and especially what seems to be a rogue agency, the RDA, now colluding with billionaires against the citizenry and the interests of Salt Lake City citizens. We need to put a stop to that. When we see that they are actively working, even against and lying straight to the faces of council members and the mayor, trying to get a sweetheart backroom deal to destroy the last movie palace in Utah, so that a wealthy developer based in Dallas can get free land. It's really disturbing. I also want to echo the concerns of the Brown Berets. And that's another example where we've vacated and given away free city land free Salt Lake City citizen-owned land to wealthy developers for nothing, against the will of the people. It's really disturbing, and there needs to be an 180-degree change immediately, as well as in city council, electoral reform, where you can't take thousands of dollars and then 2 days later vote to give away for free land owned by Salt Lake City citizens to billionaire developers based out of state. We need to change that immediately. Please look in the mirror. Please change your ways. Thank you. Bye.
All right, Council Chair, we're going to try Emiliano again. Em, you are unmuted. Em, is your microphone connected? All right, we're going to keep working with our Council Chair. Next, we have George Chapman, followed by Roger Borganish, and then Eric Nelson. One moment while I unmute George. George, you're unmuted. George, are you there?
Hello?
We can hear you now, George.
Oh.
We can hear you now, George. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm against using transportation impact fees for anything other than basic maintenance of streets. And on another subject, consultants are killing this city. They screwed up Miller Park, they screwed up Foothill Trails, and they're screwing up one of the great artworks in Salt Lake City by suggesting that it be ground down and even suggesting lifeguards if there's any water in a fountain. That doesn't make sense. This city is spending over $5 million in preserving buildings that are considered art, but at the same time considering grinding down the Seven Canyons fountain art donated by O.C. Tanner. That art deserves to be protected from consultants. And I'm begging you to listen to the 10,000 a month who want more police. We have the best de-escalation trained cops in Utah, and we're losing them. If this city is losing over 10 a week, the departments that value those cops and their valuable de-escalation training, this city needs to stop catering to defund the police minority. Please implement a retention bonus and respectful salary that recognizes that they regularly face criminals with guns and risk their lives. Chief Brown said that the city may be able to hire 30 in the next 6 months, but before they're effectively trained, this city will be down 200 cops. What will it take for this city to start listening to the 10,000 a month who want more police? Please pay the police a respectful salary. That's the only way to hire more social workers. Thanks for listening.
Council Chair, next we have Roger Borganich, followed by Eric Nelson. Roger, you are unmuted. Roger, you're unmuted. We will check in with Roger and see if he's having technical issues. In that meantime, we'll move on to Eric Nelson. Eric, you are unmuted.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for taking my comments here. I was going to speak up earlier. However, I felt like from a high level, this fit more within the general comment section. I would like to express my complete solidarity with the movement to defund the Salt Lake City Police Department. They are sucking up valuable resources in our community. That is apparent, that is obvious, given the 58% increase that was quoted earlier. These are funds that could be used, as we have mentioned, over and over and over again, for things that actually benefit the most dispossessed people of our society, the most disenfranchised, people that are victims of the RDA and the ongoing push for gentrification that is being powered financially through taxpayer money. And the financial beneficiaries of this are largely landowners and private corporations, to the expense of the local population, largely displaced. There are other ways that a city could develop tax revenue, such as taxing corporations, taxing the big money that's coming to this city, that's flooding the city. There are ways that could be done, but the question is whether or not the city and the council will actually push for those demands, or are they instead acting out of the interests of these large corporations? It doesn't seem to matter so much, as in the council and the mayor do not have to respond in this meeting to any of the people that have voiced their concerns. We have seen on the streets the dire circumstances that people are forced into and that are being pushed over and over again by the cops, further traumatizing these people. They are us. These people could be any one of us. We don't have Medicare for all. We don't have universal health care. We don't have so many of the safety nets that are otherwise necessary for a society to function. And so as you continue to fund the police over these dire needs, the situation on the ground is only going to get worse, and the city and the mayor are only going to face increased pressure. I highly recommend that the city and the council and mayor change course immediately to actually benefit the people that live here, the people that genuinely need your help. If teachers can do so much with so little, cops, we don't need to listen to the whining from the police department about lack of funding. Teachers have been grossly underfunded. Healthcare has been grossly underfunded for decades. So I don't want to hear it anymore. None of us do. We want to see people being helped. I think that matters. Thank you.
All right, Council Chair, we're going to try Emiliano one more time, and we're going to unmute her. Em, you're unmuted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's a bit of an echo, though. If you have two devices on, you're going to have an echo.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to say a couple things. I'm not very happy about the fact that you guys kind of decided to just have the motion on the learned alley vacation ordinance. I know that this was a thing I think we talked about last week and we postponed it. Also, it's very difficult to see, like, or at least for like the public to see what the actions items will be, and having to constantly like go and look and see if it'll be this week, next week, whatever. But I was kind of expecting that we would have a discussion, or at least that the city council would have a discussion, or listen to the public comments before passing the ordinance. So I was very disappointed in that. I hope that we can visit that in the future, because we know that there's a lot of gentrification going in Rose Park already, and that these Luso apartments, the people who are planning on developing them, have already displaced a couple families or a few families. I was looking and I saw that they bought the houses off of them for cheaper than what they're actually worth, which I think is really sad and kind of is just shows how this process is affecting people. I don't know where they're living, but I doubt that if they want to keep living in Rose Park, they won't be able to, especially with that money that they were given. But anyways, I kind of feel like this, like allowing them to pass this, or passing this ordinance is basically allowing, if not incentivizing, more developers to come, because they can see how easy it is. I hope the city knows that they have the power to stop it, and can choose to, especially after, I guess, hearing so many public comments. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening and everything.
Council Chair, that was our last speaker.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you to everyone who came and commented this evening. We appreciate your comments.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I make a super quick point of personal privilege? That the administration, everyone that called in with concerns about gentrification, that the administration is proposing a gentrification or mitigation plan or anti-gentrification plan, and that'll be going out to bid for a contractor to help us do that plan. And I just hope that everybody that called in will keep that on your radar as we move into forming that plan, and we'll give all of the comments and feedback that you've given tonight about gentrification as part of that plan. so that we can try to better address that issue going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. Council members, we are now on to unfinished business. The first item in unfinished business is an ordinance that would amend Appendix B, appointed employees by department, of the fiscal year 2020-2021 annual compensation plan for non-represented employees of Salt Lake City Corporation. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the amendment to the plan. Is that sufficient, or do I need to state more?
Hold,
That's
please.
sufficient.
Great. I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Rogers. I will roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes. Item number 2 is an interlocal agreement for reconfiguration of the Gilmer Drive intersection. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Mono. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes. Council members, we are on the consent portion of our agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, council members. I appreciate the motion and the second, but we did not have an interview for
Except for L3, I think is what it is.
L2.
L2. Yep, that's the one I want to leave off.
L3.
Is it L3?
It is L3, right?
L3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justin
I
Rodriguez.
was kind of correct every once in a while, so I will leave off L3.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. Thank you, everyone. So we have a motion by Councilmember Rogers. I'm just going to repeat it so we're clear that it is to approve the consent item with the removal of item L3.
Correct.
Councilmember, who gave the second? Wharton?
I did. Yeah.
So you're still seconding that motion?
Yes. And I vote yes.
Perfect. So we have a vote by Councilmember Wharton, Councilmember Rogers.
That was really tricky, Councilmember Wharton. I like that. I vote yes too.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
And I am a yes, and I don't see Councilmember Valdemoros here for the vote.
Sorry, I'm here.
Are you here, Anna?
Yeah, so I'm a yes too.
Okay, that is unanimous by all council members. I see Cindy Lou, and whenever I see Cindy Lou, I know that we did something wrong. So, but how can we fix things?
Nothing wrong, Council Chair. We just wanted to mention that item J1, which is a resolution for the issuance of the Series 2021 bonds for the financing of the SLC airport, did not receive a motion.
I am so sorry. I must have skipped over that. J1 or J2. I skipped over J. Sorry, council members. You thought you were going to be done, and you're not quite yet. Thank you, Cindy Lou. We're going to go back up to new business, and it is item number 1 is a resolution that would authorize the sale of airport revenue bond issued to continue to finance construction of the new Salt Lake City International Airport. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 21 annual compensation plan Appendix B for appointed employees.
Wrong.
No. Madam Chair, I move that the council approve issuance of the bonds for the new SLC airport reconstruction.
My bad. Second.
That's okay. Thanks, James. I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Rogers. I will roll call this. Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
and I am a yes, and that passes. One more item, everyone. We have new business item J2 with a motion to meet remotely without an anchor location. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we continue to meet remotely without an anchor location and ratify the chair's decision under the applicable state law.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Rogers. Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes. Do we have to add a date to this, or yes, but with that question? Can I do that?
Katie,
I think it only goes, we keep doing it only on a monthly basis, so I think we can only do it for up to a month, and then the chair has to make the decision, and then we can choose to ratify it again. But we've never specified a date in the past.
Okay. Yes.
SLC Fire working. I don't know if y'all heard that go by my house. Great. So that passes unanimously as well. And council members, that concludes, I might have been a little rough end but because I was so confused, but that concludes our council meeting for today. We will see you at our work session on Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
See a positive outcome within our nation. And it's clear, I don't need to throw out any numbers or data, but we know even in this state, we do